The woman at the well. In the gentle heat of a Samaritan afternoon, when the sun hung high in the cloudless sky and most people sought the cool shelter of their homes, a solitary figure made her way along the dusty path to Jacob's well. The sound of her sandals against the sun-baked earth created a quiet rhythm, matching the peaceful rustling of olive leaves in the warm breeze. The well stood as it had for generations, a testament to ancient faith and daily necessity. Its stone walls, worn smooth by countless ropes and vessels, held the collected wisdom of centuries. The depth of its waters promised relief from the midday heat, while the shade of nearby trees offered respite to weary travelers. It was at this hour, when the day was at its warmest and the paths were usually empty, that she chose to come. Her copper water jar balanced expertly on her shoulder, its familiar weight a companion on these solitary journeys. The air shimmered with heat, creating gentle waves that danced above the ground, while cicadas sang their drowsy afternoon song from hidden places. As she approached the well, she noticed another figure resting there. It was unusual to see anyone at this hour, particularly a traveler, and more particularly a Jewish man. Jesus sat there, weary from his journey through Samaria, his presence peaceful and unassuming. His disciples had gone into the nearby town to find food, leaving him alone by the ancient well. The woman slowed her steps, her water jar still balanced carefully as she considered her approach. The only sounds were the gentle whisper of wind through the trees and the distant bleating of sheep on the hillsides. The afternoon light cast long shadows across the well's stone rim, creating patterns that seemed to hold stories of their own. As she drew closer to the well, Jesus looked up with gentle eyes that held no judgment, only a peaceful welcome. The heat of the day seemed to pause around them as he spoke, asking simply for a drink of water. His voice carried the warmth of human kindness, bridging the ancient divide between their peoples as naturally as sunlight touching earth. The woman paused, her surprise evident in the slight tilt of her head. The request was simple, yet it crossed boundaries of culture and custom as easily as the breeze crossed the surrounding hills. "How is it?" she wondered aloud, her voice carrying a mixture of curiosity and caution, "that you ask me for a drink?" The weight of centuries of separation between Jew and Samaritan hung in the air between them, like dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. Jesus' response flowed as smoothly as the water hidden deep within the well. He spoke of living water, his words carrying the freshness of spring rain. The ancient stones of the well seemed to listen as he spoke of a water that would forever quench thirst, of a spring welling up to eternal life. His voice was as soothing as the sound of flowing streams, inviting rather than demanding understanding. The woman shifted her water jar, its coolness against her shoulder, a reminder of her daily task. Her eyes, accustomed to looking down in shame, found themselves drawn to his peaceful countenance. The afternoon light softened around them as their conversation deepened, like shadows lengthening across gentle waters. In this quiet moment, the well became more than a source of water. It became a meeting place of hearts. The ancient stones that had witnessed countless conversations now held another, one that would ripple outward through time like circles spreading on still water. Jesus spoke with a knowing gentleness about the woman's life, his words flowing like cool water over sun-warmed stones. He mentioned her 5 husbands and her current situation, not with condemnation, but with understanding that touched her soul like morning light touching dewdrops. The truth of his words settled around her like a soft mantle, bringing not shame but a sense of being truly seen. The woman, feeling the depth of this encounter, turned the conversation toward matters of worship. Her voice carried the wondering tone of someone discovering new paths in familiar territory. She spoke of the mountain where Samaritans worshipped, of the differences between their people's practices, each word a careful step toward deeper understanding. The afternoon light slanted through the branches above them, creating patterns that shifted gently with the breeze. Jesus responded with words that seemed to expand like the horizon at dawn. He spoke of a time, already present, when true worshipers would worship in spirit and truth. His voice carried the peaceful assurance of one who knew the heart of divine love. The ancient well stood as a silent witness to this transformation, its depth reflecting the profound nature of their exchange. Like water slowly wearing away stone, the barriers between their cultures began to dissolve in the presence of deeper truth. The woman found herself sharing thoughts she had never voiced, questions she had long held close to her heart. As they spoke, even the air seemed to hold a sacred quality, like the hushed atmosphere before rain. The distant sounds of village life carried on the breeze, a gentle reminder of the world beyond this moment. Yet here by the well, time seemed to move with a different rhythm. In the gentle flow of their conversation, the woman began to sense something extraordinary unfolding, like dawn breaking over familiar hills. When Jesus spoke of being the Messiah, his words settled into her heart as naturally as evening dew on thirsty ground. The revelation came not with thunder or dramatic display, but with the quiet certainty of truth recognized. At this moment, the disciples returned from the village, their footsteps stirring small clouds of dust on the path. They moved quietly, sensing the sacred nature of what they had stumbled upon. The woman, filled with a new purpose that lifted her steps, left her water jar by the well. The vessel that had been her daily burden now stood as a marker of transformation. She moved toward the village with renewed energy, her feet barely touching the sun-warmed earth. The shame that had driven her to fetch water in the heat of day had dissolved like morning mist in sunlight. Her voice, once careful and measured, now carried the joy of discovery as she spoke to everyone she met in the village streets. "Come and see," she called softly, her words floating on the afternoon breeze like seeds seeking fertile ground. She spoke of a man who had told her everything she had ever done, but her voice held wonder rather than fear. The villagers, drawn by the change they heard in her voice, began to emerge from their homes and gathering places. Meanwhile, Jesus remained at the well, teaching his disciples about spiritual food and the harvest of souls. The fields around them rippled gently in the breeze, their golden grain a living illustration of his words. The late afternoon light painted everything in warm hues, as if nature itself was illuminating this lesson in love and acceptance. The Samaritans came from the village like a gentle stream flowing toward the well, drawn by the woman's quiet testimony. They found Jesus still sitting there, his presence as welcoming as shade on a warm day. The ancient prejudices that had built walls between their peoples seemed to dissolve in his presence, like morning mist giving way to sunlight. For 2 peaceful days, Jesus stayed among them, each moment a gentle unfolding of truth and understanding. His words fell like soft rain on receptive soil, bringing new life to long dormant seeds of faith. The woman watched as her neighbors experienced the same transformation she had found at the well, their hearts opening like flowers to the morning sun. The villagers spoke to her with new respect, seeing in her not the woman who came to the well at noon, but the one whose encounter with truth had blessed their entire community. "We believe," they told her softly, "not just because of your words, but because we have heard him ourselves." Their voices carried the peaceful certainty of personal discovery. As Jesus prepared to continue his journey, the impact of his visit had settled into the community like evening settling over the hills. The well, always a gathering place for physical water, had become a source of living water, its ancient stones now holding new stories of transformation and grace. The woman who had approached the well in solitude found herself surrounded by a community renewed in spirit. Her daily journey to draw water would never be the same, for now the well held memories of divine encounter, of barriers broken, and of truth spoken in love. The shame that had once driven her to seek solitude at noon had been transformed into a testimony that drew others to living water. As our story draws to a close, we see how a simple request for water became a spring of eternal truth. Like the woman at the well, we too might find our daily routines transformed by unexpected encounters with divine love. Her story reminds us that no barrier is too ancient, no wound too deep, for the gentle healing of grace. Remember that transformation often comes in the quiet moments, in the heat of ordinary days, by ancient wells where heaven touches earth. Like the Samaritan woman, we might find our greatest ministry growing from our deepest wounds, our stories of shame becoming testimonies of grace. May you rest in the knowledge that divine love seeks us in our everyday moments, offering living water to quench our deepest thirst. Like the woman who left her water jar by the well, may you find yourself unburdened by encounters with grace, free to share the good news of being truly known and fully loved.